Hello, everyone. It's nice to see so many people in the audience. Before we get to introduction and like to actual Move Pros, because I really doubt that I'm a Move Pro. Maybe the guys are, but I'm definitely not. Who knows what Move is? I mean, I'm assuming that you all know, but like actually practice Move, so hashtag style. Okay. So we have some people, right? There's a group of people, right, who know a little bit about Move. Miles, just raise your hand. Come on. Okay. That gives us a lot of exposure into like what to talk about, right? Before we get to like the actual topic, let's just do the introduction, starting with you, Thouny, and then Jose and myself.
Yeah. Okay. Who am I? I'm initially a mechanical engineer, actually. So a few years ago, I sucked at programming when I graduated, and I sucked at many things, actually. So I quit mechanical engineering because it was too corporate, it was very boring and lame, and you're building planes and cars, and okay, we know how to do it. So I was looking for something more, better opportunity. So I found Web3, and I got, I'm self-taught on development, on programming. So I started with web development, and then just switched on Rust and smart contracts. And since then, I explored many blockchain environments, so Multiverse X, the VMs, Aptos, a little, and Sui, and I even started a bit with Radix, but they're a bit too niche, just like Multiverse X. So.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I started on the banking and finance industry. Then I got pulled into the crypto space in 2017 because of the ICO craze, the dreams of making money. But I got more fascinated about the fact that people could interact with one another without having to trust. So I wanted to understand how the technology worked behind the scenes. So I decided to become a programmer, self-taught. Had to go back to the web too, JavaScript, TypeScript, React, then Solidity, and thank God I found Move, and I'm here.
So because like not few people coded in Move, and like we only saw Manus actually raising hand and a couple other people, but I mean more than that. But if you came from Rust background, right, and you came with Solidity as a JavaScript, and you mentioned a little Solidity. Okay, so how was it for you, Thouny? Like, is Move similar to Rust?
So I started with JavaScript, and it was terrible. So I was a bad programmer at first, obviously. So then I switched to Rust, and it was much better. And finally, Move, so core Move on Aptos. And it's not that intuitive. You have many limitations. So switching on Sui Move from Rust and even core Move, it was really a huge improvement. Everything feels super natural. You can design a system or a protocol in your mind or on a piece of paper, and you can just reproduce it very easily in Sui Move without having to do some heavy researches and find workarounds, because you have some functions that are given by the framework. Everything is super simple. You start from the objects, and then it's like actual. I mean, we all hear all the time about the Legos comparison in Web3, where people want to build system like Legos block, where you take a part and you plug it to another one. And on Sui, it's actually the only place where I really felt this Lego way of building and thinking. You have access to the most fundamental building block on Sui, so the object, and from here you build everything. So the kiosk, this guy built it, but I mean anyone could build another version very easily and adapt it to his need. And on other blockchains, maybe Rust-based or Solidity-based, it's very different because you don't have those, like the blockchain physics implemented into the VM. You have to recreate all the assets, behavior. Yeah, I forgot what was the question, but I guess that's it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much answers my question. Yeah, no worries. Jose, what about you? How was the change from JavaScript and TypeScript, or like how natural it was for you to actually learn and use Move?
Yeah, first I had to read the Rust book just to understand the borrowing system and the type. But the hardest part was actually the fact that I knew Solidity before Move, right? Because I had ingrained the idea of the account-based model. So I tried to squeeze that architecture into Move. It works, but it's not expressive and it's not ideal. It leads to uncomposable software. Yeah, so probably the best way to start Move is to not know Solidity at all, you know? Yeah.
Right, I'm getting constantly punished by that, but I think that Solidity is an anti-pattern in Move as a whole. But we're learning, so like eventually there will be some like more guides from, if you're coding in Solidity or if you're familiar with Solidity, like there will be certain like things to know that are different and that makes Move more obvious or like more understandable and approachable. Myself, I was also a Solidity developer, like starting in 2017, 2018. And I switched to Move in 2019, late 2019, 2020. So it was like quite some time ago. And to me, like this change was like absolutely, like I could not get back to Solidity. And like ever since then, I dreamed of working with Move again because it was just such a nice language until there was like an actual project like Sui and Mysten Labs that I joined to work on, to work with Move because I loved it so much. And yeah, I just wanted to also share my bit of experience because I feel you guys. Yeah, it's the same story. So when it comes to Move and Sui, what was like the first thing that was like, I know, did you struggle with? I mean, struggle I may understand, right? You just struggled probably with object model. I mean, just nod if that's yes. But what was the moment when it kind of clicked? Because I do know some people, such as like Brian from Studio Mirai, like he is saying things as I used to say them, like, or as I'm saying right now. And so I know that there's like this moment when it clicks, and then you just hack it, and then it just everything is understandable. Did you have a moment like this for you? Because I assume you had.
Oh yeah, I mean there are a couple. You know, I think the first one is everything is an NFT is unique, but because I'm a DeFi developer, so I started building a DEX, and my first approach was just to have one shared object. I'll just call it storage, stake everything there, and that was it. And I realized if a user is trading on pool A, it has nothing to do with pool B. So why do they have to touch the same object? It doesn't make any sense. Each pool itself can be a shared object. And that's when it clicked, you know. You have those entities, the objects, and then the modules, just scripts to update them. And everything just made sense. It made it way easier to build things now.
Yeah, I have two examples in mind. First one, I don't know which one was the first one actually. So PTBs, like when it came out, it was almost a year ago, or yeah, about a year ago. So on testnet and devnet, it didn't exist, and things were different. You used entry function to have access, like to integrate your smart contract with the dApp, the front end. And when PTB went live, it changed my conceptions of things. It opens a whole new way of designing interoperable systems. So you could imagine endless things to build. I've discussed this with many people today upstairs. You have a DeFi protocol that is just providing objects to pick up from their own dApp, but we could say that a guy building NFTs, he could want to build his to integrate his own dApp on the protocol and use the return coin to store it in his own NFT and then lend the NFT in another protocol. Just in one transaction, and without rewriting smart contract code, move code, everything can happen from the front end or back end, or I mean, with any language, it doesn't have to be move and it doesn't have to be immutable. So that's one thing, and the other one is kiosk, I think, because that's when I understood that everything was possible on Sui. Before I was really involved on Multiverse X, and it's also a blockchain that took the direction of making the programming environment and the user experience very safe, but they do it by limiting a lot of things, and it's fucking annoying to just have to find workarounds. They are built-in functions, and yeah, of an example with the kiosk, because that's what I was talking about. On Ethereum, if you want to enforce royalties, well, you can't, and that happens at the marketplace level. So that's OpenSea or centralized entities that are managing this. And with kiosk, you're doing this at the blockchain layer, the smart contract layer. And it's decentralized. The one who decides the policies, the royalties, enforcement, it's the creator, it's not the marketplace. And it was kind of difficult to understand how the kiosk and the transfer policies work. And here I found a hidden repository under Damir's GitHub account, and he explained it well. Like you can add rules to your policy to say this NFT, it has to do exactly this and this and this, otherwise it can't work. And he said it in a way like it can be really anything, and it's true. And I've never seen that anywhere else. And you can use this example to build many similar systems to enforce behavior while keeping your protocol highly composable. So yeah, it's super great.
Yeah, to add a little, like for people not familiar with what kiosk is, it's a special type of container for your NFTs, which is implemented as a standard on Sui, which stores your NFTs, and whenever your NFT or like basically any asset that you trade leaves the kiosk to another kiosk, like another user's kiosk, instead of going to a marketplace and then going to another user, the policies are enforced. And so the policies are set by creator and not by the marketplace, so it could technically exist in the P2P world. So I could trade, but the policies of the creator will always be enforced. And so it also applies to marketplaces, which can enforce their own policies on top of that. And so it's just like this whole magical thingy that we have on Sui. So I actually had a question in mind, but oh yeah, I know. So we mentioned one standard, right, which is like kiosk for NFTs and just generic container for things. But what about coins? Because I do know that you both worked like with DeFi things, like with the Great Interest Protocol, and how do you like the coin standard? Like how the coin implementation on Sui differs, or and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the coin standard, it builds on top of the object model, which is just perfect. If you guys here come from the Solidity background or have used any Ethereum dApp, you know that to interact with any app, you must give an allowance, right? You have to interact with this interface, and this means that the dApp can move your assets without your permission anytime if you don't revoke. So the coin eliminates that. You know, you can directly move assets to any dApp without giving up on your custody. And the second thing about the coin standards, think about it. I had a brain freeze. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the comparison with Solidity is great because on not legacy blockchain, but traditional blockchain, you have all the data related to assets or user state, which is centralized under accounts. So you have one token. Everything is held into one smart contract, and it means it's centralized. If there is a hack, everything is gone, or yeah, it's over. Whereas on Sui, you own your assets, so it's truly decentralized. And if I have a coin, I know nobody can steal it from me except if I give him my mnemonic phrase. And there is no. This standard is great for some things because it looks like cash. You just give something to someone and it just belongs to him now. And you can't have Macron just taking your money in the middle of the exchange, because you can't have a middleware, a function in the middle just taking a fee out of nowhere, because the coin was defined this way. All the coins are the same. It's cash, and you know how it behaves. And for more stuff, you have the token standard now, where you can have more complex behaviors.
Yeah, to complete on that, having the standard is great because you know exactly how the coin will behave. So you can write safer contracts and predictable behavior. I remember coding on Ethereum, and I think DAI just doesn't return the decimals function. So you just have to guess that this token won't, and you have to write try catches, go around, because the other dApps are not enforced to follow the standard. They all agree there's going to be DRC20, I'm going to have this interface, but they don't have to. Right, so having the coin standard is really helpful, makes it really composable and safe. It's great. Yeah.
Getting back to the move track, to the main topic of the conversation, what was the hardest part for you to understand? Thouny, you already, or I think Jose, you mentioned that you read the Rust book to understand the borrow checker, which seems like something that is not very obvious to do, but you somehow figured it out. What are the other hard parts about Move, and if borrow checker is hard as well?
Honestly, the hardest part about Move is coming with the account-based model, because then you really don't know how to implement things. You try to force a translation, right, and then your contracts just don't behave properly. And the other things is that I recommend to all developers, you just read the source code. The hard part is that we don't have enough resources because it's a young ecosystem, but you have access to the best code written by the best Move developers. That's the Sui framework and the Sui system, and it's pretty expressive, it's pretty clear. So I recommend everyone, because we also teach developers at WBA, and what I say is really go to the source code. If you want to know how to get the timestamp on chain, find the modular code clock and read everything, and you'll find it. And they usually do, and it's the best way to learn Move and makes it quite easy.
So the question was what's hard with Move? Yeah. So I'd say with Sui Move, the hard part for beginners, what I noticed when I taught Sui Move at WBA was how to retrieve objects, like how to find the object that you have to explicitly pass into the function, because it's not like on Aptos or other blockchains. You have to be explicit about what you pass into the function, so what resources you access, what state you access, and in this way, Sui can parallelize all the transaction execution in a non-optimistic way. I don't know what's the word. And that's like Solana is doing, for instance. And so because of this, you have to search for the object you need and pass them to the function. So you need their IDs. And when you have several pieces of shared state at different places on the blockchain with different objects, and then you have other parts of the state which are owned by the user account. So the state is everywhere. The state of an application of a dApp is everywhere. And you have to fetch him and to get him into the function in some ways. And that's something complicated, not super complicated, but it has to be learned, I guess. This morning there was a talk about the new RPC 2.0 with GraphQL, and this will be much easier to do. For instance, right now to retrieve dynamic fields on an object, it's 2 or 3 RPC calls. So yeah, it's very complicated. You have a map on your object. So for example, address to number. And if you want to find all this data, you need to call the object, then call its dynamic field, and then filter all all the objects that represent the table. It's not very intuitive, but yeah, I guess it's improving, so that's good news.
Oh, nice. Thank you, both. So, what is like? Do you think that it's possible to implement anything in Move? Like, is there something that you cannot do in Move?
That's a good question, because when I arrived on Sui and I started developing stuff, it was really the first time that I felt everything is possible. So it's like a epos, I guess, everything is possible. No, it doesn't work. Anyway, yeah, because before I was on EVM, Multiverse X. I didn't try Solana because it's too scaring. And there you have limitations. You have things that are poorly designed. You wonder why they built it this way. It's very I don't know actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to map one-to-one the functionalities, you might say there are restrictions. For example, I just want to do a dynamic dispatch. Sure, you cannot do it, but if you ask, what am I trying to achieve with this function, you can definitely do it. There's other patterns to do such things. I know there are some very limitations that can be done at the validator level. I know people ask all the time, I want to do transfers on fee or rebase. Yeah, the language doesn't support, but that comes with the ownership model. I think the trade-off is 100% worth it. But it can just be done, you know, the recently deny list, yeah, you can do it. So yeah, there is always a pattern. You just can't think, oh, it's a one-to-one with what's out there. You have to discover the new ways to do it.
Yeah, I think it applies to programming in general. As soon as you're trying something and it just doesn't work, you should ask yourself a question: what am I actually trying to achieve? And is it achievable? So, like the really, really, really silly question, but that's exactly what all of us three should answer. What advice would you give to your younger Move engineer self?
Yeah, I think you said it earlier, but it's if you start with Sui Move and you come from Solana or Ethereum, just forget what you know about blockchain programming, because it's so different and you're gonna think the wrong way. Actually, you have to reverse your brain. You know, it's not even reverse. It's so entirely different. So just forget what you know. Read the docs and be creative. Just be curious. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta approach with an open mind for sure. That will be my main advice. Read the Rust book. It's good if you don't have a programming background, and just read a lot of source code. I think most people get stuck because they just ignore the Sui framework and Sui system, but it's there. And if you know most of the API, you can make most of your code base is done 80%. You just gotta worry about the rest 20%.
Not sure if you actually meant the Rust book or the Move book, but I would
Both.
I would also recommend reading the letter because it's now publicly available, but silent release. Thank you, Tim. And so yeah, advice from me would be to just stay open-minded, because a lot of people come to Sui Move development and they try to do exactly like they do on a certain network or the type of coding they're used to. We indeed do a lot of things differently in Sui and Move as a whole. And being open-minded and actually spending a little time before you actually jump to oh, I see something familiar, I see a table there. So as soon as you see a table, think why you're using a table. I think we have enough documentation now for the Sui framework, and also why tables are great and why tables are not so great as well. In certain applications, it really depends on an application. But if you just definitely a tip, if you realize that everything that you write is just table of a table of a table, maybe that's not the way to do it. That would be my only advice, really. All right. So any parting tricks? Tips or tricks? As we're wrapping up.
Yeah, just follow Damir, stalk him, just read all his code, read the Move book, and you'll be a pro. I swear to God, that's what I did.
Yeah. Use GitHub, and you will maybe find some code from Damir, from Jose, from Krejimir, from anybody from the Sui community. Knowing how to research features and piece of code on GitHub is very important. That's what saved me all the time, because I know nothing,
All right, so let me correct that. You should not follow me, but you should follow the guys, because they're actually sharing a lot of educational content, like almost daily, on Twitter, like everywhere. They also have the open source repositories with example code. And so that's actually the place to learn Move, and they're doing a great job for the ecosystem, for the education, and for the community to actually showcase the code. So like if you have a moment, please find any one of us like after this, and we will also like guide you and send you to the right places. Not just the Sui documentation, not just the book, but also like certain repositories on GitHub, like open source, that may help you like start your Move journey. All right. With that, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you guys for coming here.
Man.
Thank you, Damir.
Thank you for the conversation.